It is shown in the movie that a newly married couple brings a male robot to their home to make their work easier. But after some time, human feelings develop inside him, due to which he starts loving his mistress. At the beginning of the movie, we are shown a couple named Sophie and James who are shifting things inside their house. James's financial condition is not good enough to hire a servant, so both of them have to do all the household work together. While James's father is a big businessman of this city, but for some reason he does not live with his father. Rather, he prefers to live with Sophie, and both of them are very happy with their married life. But one day, James comes to know that his father has died. Hence, he has given all the property of his father in the name of his son, James. Hence, now James will have to handle all the business of his father. Now both of them leave their old life and shift to the new life, but after moving to the new life, Sophie does not like anything because she likes to live a normal life. Along with this, she likes to do all the household work herself, and hence she fires all the servants of the house on the very first day. When James comes to know about this, he comes and starts explaining to Sophie that you should not have done this because this is a very big house, and you will not be able to manage all the work of this house alone. Therefore, we need servants for this household work. But Sophie does not listen to him, and tells him that earlier too we used to do all the household work ourselves, so we do not need anyone. We can do this household work the same way. But James was so busy with his father's business that he was unable to give time to Sophie. On the other hand, Sophie is also not able to manage the household chores alone, so James shares his problem with a friend. Then his friend tells him that I have a solution to your problem. Actually, my father works in a robotic company, whose owner makes some such robots which look exactly like humans. So you should go there and purchase a robot. Now James reaches that company with Sophie, but Sophie is quite surprised to see those robots because they look exactly like humans. So both of them go alone and start discussing this matter. They fear that these robots may not be a threat to them in the future, but the owner of the company assures them that these robots do not pose any threat to them. Rather, these robots will do whatever work they are asked to do. Now, to convince James, the company owner asks Robert named Henry to lick James's shoes. So Handy does exactly what he is told to do. Seeing this, James and Sophie believe him, so they bring Henry to their home. After being brought home, Henry starts doing all the household chores very well. That's why Sophie and James get a lot of help with the household chores. He alone can easily do all those household tasks, which even the other servants together could not do. On the other hand, when James tries to talk to him, he answers him in the same way as any human being. So James starts spending most of his time with her, because he can understand his words very well. That's why James starts liking him a lot. But initially, Sophie did not like him, but gradually she becomes very impressed after seeing his work. So whenever James goes to the office, she spends the rest of her time with him, and Henry also takes great care of her needs. He takes great care of her because he is programmed that way, that if its owner is happy, then it can be considered an ideal robot. Now the life of James and Sophie, which was not going very well before, but with the arrival of Henry, everything becomes fine in their life. One day when Sophie asks Henry about love and human feelings, he explains to her very well about love and human feelings, after hearing which Sophie gets very impressed with him. Therefore, instead of thinking of Henry as a robot, she starts thinking of him as a human being, but seeing Sophie's closeness to Henry, James does not like it at all. He starts getting jealous, whereas James knows very well that Henry is not a human being, but he is a robot. But still he wants Sophie to stay away from him because he starts feeling insecure. So he takes Sophie alone and explains that you shouldn't talk to Henry like he's a human being, because the way we treat him, he will also behave with us in the same way. Therefore, if you make the mistake of considering him a human being, then he will also start considering himself a human being, which is not right. But Sophie does not agree with anything he says. At night, when both of them are sleeping in their room, Sophie hears some noise from Henry's room, So when she goes to his room and looks, she comes to know that Hendry is not in his room. When Sophie comes out to look, she finds Hendry, who is sleeping lying in the garden. Here, Sophie notices that Hendry is dreaming while sleeping, which is not possible for a robot. Sophie becomes very surprised to see this, so James now wakes her up from her sleep and takes her inside the house. The next day, the company head is called to check Hendry, and after checking, he tells them that there is a technical error inside it, which is a normal thing for any robot. Now, when Sophie tells him this, that night, he was seeing a dream while sleeping, and I have noticed all this very well. Then he tells them that Hendry has been with you for a long time, so some human feelings have come inside him. Now, because you have awakened this feeling in him, due to which he has started considering himself a human being. That's why he might be thinking about you at night. Now, hearing this, James starts getting angry at Sophie that all this has happened because of him, because she is treating him as if he is a human being. Therefore, James tells Sophie that from now on, she will consider Hendry as a Robert and not a human being. But Sophie does not listen to him, which leads to a lot of fighting between the two. So James goes to Hendry and tells him to stop spending time with his wife and stay away from her. To which Hendry asks him if he has made any mistake. But James tells him to stop asking questions like a human and do as I say. But Hendry tells this to Sophie, due to which Sophie gets very angry and leaves the house. Hendry is very intelligent as a human being, so he tries to explain to James that whatever problems are going on in his life are not his fault. Actually, earlier Sophie and James used to spend a lot of time with each other. But now, due to business, James is not able to give time to Sophie. Therefore, instead of considering Hendry as a robot, Sophie considers him a human being and tries to fulfill all her wishes from him. Now that Sophie had left the house, James takes advantage of this to get close to Hendry and does wrong things with her, but the next morning he realizes his mistake, so he calls Sophie and tells her to come back home. Asks for. In the next scene, we see that when Hendry is massaging Sophie, he comes close to her, which Sophie also likes very much. But when he tells Sophie that he has fallen in love with her, after hearing this, Sophie is very surprised and scared. So now she asks him to leave from here. Now when Sophie tells all this to James, he gets very angry after hearing this. So he goes to Hendry's room and slaps him. And along with this, he also calls the owner of his company and tells him that he get Robert out of here. But Hendry doesn't want to leave, so he apologizes to Sophie. He says clearly that I apologize for whatever I have said to you, but by whatever means you stop me from leaving here. He also tells Sophie what James did to her when she was not in the house, so both husband and wife realize their mistake, that both of them had been attracted towards Hendry, so now they want to correct their mistake and get rid of Robert, and they decide to live a normal life like before. Now the company's honor comes to take Hendry, but like before, Hendry does not listen to anything the company's honor says, and here we come to know a big truth. Actually, Hendry is not a robot, but he is a human because the owner of the company always wanted to create some such robots which are better than humans, but he is not able to succeed in his mission. So he starts experimenting on humans so that he can. By killing his human feelings and brainwashing him, it proves that he is not a human being, but a machine. When he comes in contact with Sophie, then the human feeling inside him gets awakened because he was only a human being, hence he tells all these things to Sophie James, after hearing which he gets very angry at the honor of the company, hence he goes to the police. Let's go and tell them the whole truth about how the company's honor has ruined people's lives. The police starts coming to arrest the company's owner, Noor, taking James and Sophie with them, but he attacks the police. After this, he was about to kill Sophie and James, but then Hendry attacks him and steps on him with a knife, which kills him. After this, he stabs himself, and Hendry is also killed. But seeing Hendry's loyalty, Sophie and James are deeply saddened by his death. Now a scene is shown after a few years where Sophie and James have a son whom they named Hendry, because both of them did not want to forget Hendry. Hence they named their son Hendry, and in the same scene, with this, the movie ends.